guys, today I thought I would share some of my tips that I have learned from buying dolls over the last few years. Some of those, I always say there are never failures, there's just learnings. Although sometimes you learn and it's really expensive. Lessons can be very expensive. Anyway, I thought I would share some of my tips that I've learned about buying dolls with you guys. And if you have tips to share with me, I would love to hear them. So I have my little list. Here's the first one, and I've come across this a few times. If the price on a doll is too good to be true, or it seems too good to be true, it usually is. There are some exceptions. I remember I got the Sailor Moon stock doll for like $50 on eBay, and it was from a US seller, and I thought it was too good to be true, but it wasn't. It was awesome. That is the exception. So when you are buying a doll online, you need to do extra homework. You need to look at feedback. You need to make sure that it's a legitimate seller, but you need to study the doll to make sure it's in really good condition. Probably know all this, but I know that sometimes when you see a doll and the price is really, really good, you need to move quickly. But I always say, don't be sorry, take your time, do the research, make sure it is as good as it seems. Protect yourself. Unless you really, really trust who you're buying a doll from. For instance, don't use the friends and family option when you're using PayPal. That's not to say I've never done it, because I certainly have. I've built up some really great relationships with sellers and with artists, and I've done it on occasion, but almost as a rule, I would rather pay the extra few bucks and cover the fees for PayPal than do friends and family, because you want to cover yourself in case something happens. Okay, tip 3. Pay attention to shipping. I've bought a few dolls where I'm like, wow, this is a really good price, until I saw it was like $50 to ship it here. Yikes. So whenever you are purchasing a doll and you're looking at the price, sometimes a seller that isn't completely honest will price a doll really low, but then jack up the shipping. So that's someone I might not do business with. So something to think about. Gifts, low cost. Okay, so I buy a lot of stuff internationally, and I think that's just the nature of this hobby. And a lot of times people will ask, oh, will you put it as a gift and make the value super low? And there's kind of a give and take to that. So if the seller marks something as gift for you, and I think experienced buyers know this already, and they mark the value of, let's say, $100 doll down to like $10. Yes, you may not have to pay those custom charges, because chances are it'll squeak through customs and you're fine. But if it gets lost in the mail and that happens, you're kind of up the creek a little bit. You don't have any recourse to get that money back. So just something to think about. Payment plans, layaway. So people ask me sometimes, oh, some of these dolls I buy are a little bit pricey, and do you do payment plans, layaway? I will tell you that in this case, I think it's very generous of artists and sellers to offer that option. I just think that you should be very respectful of the terms that the seller is offering for that payment plan and layaway. I've done it once or twice. My personal experience is, if I don't have the money right then, I don't need it. But that's not to say that sometimes there have been a couple of dolls that were a little pricey and I've sort of budgeted for the payment plan. But just pay attention to the terms and you should be fine. Tracking number. Oh, I love a good tracking number. So when I buy a doll, and sometimes you'll get 2 options for shipping, right? And the cheaper way is no tracking. It could take forever to get to you. Or you can have tracking and it's, quite a bit more money. For me, if I am spending that money on a doll, I don't mind adding in the cost to get a tracking number so you know exactly where that doll is. That's just me. Learn the hard way a couple of times trying to be a little cheap and then not getting something in the mail. Or it takes like 6 months. Seriously, one doll took 6 months to get to me. Good photos. This is kind of key for me especially. So if I buy something on eBay, and let's say I'm buying a doll and the price is really good, they're saying it's either used or it's new in box but secondhand, but they're using stock photos of the doll. They're not actually taking photos of the doll that they have in their possession. I steer clear of that. because everybody today has at least a cell phone to take a picture and can post pictures of these dolls. So if somebody is selling an item and isn't including pictures of the actual doll, I move right along. Feedback. I can't stress this enough. I think that we are in a hobby where there is a lot of trust involved, right? You are building relationships with people. You are buying from a lot of the same people, and you want to make sure that the people that you are buying from are respectable, that have a little bit of feedback. Now, if you are a seller and you're like, well, how am I going to get feedback? I haven't sold anything yet. Buy stuff, especially on eBay, you get feedback right from buying and selling, and just start buying some stuff and just build up a reputation for being a good business person. Custom dolls. So I get a lot of questions about how do I choose a custom doll, and what goes into that, and how do I get on these waiting lists. There's a lot of tips I can give you just on custom dolls, but I think the biggest ones for me are pay attention to newer artists. I mean, there are so many talented people out there. You might be able to get a really, really beautiful full custom doll or a face-up from a newer artist at a very, very reasonable cost, and you never know where that artist is going to go. And it's really cool to say, oh, I got one of their first dolls. So pay attention to the new artists. Wait times. This is kind of fun. This is a little challenging sometimes because every artist is different, right? No two people work on the same timeline. There's no rule for how quickly an artist needs to get your doll back to you. So if you're doing a custom faceplate, for instance, and I do a lot of these, I always look to see the timeline for when an artist is going to have your doll and send it back to you. So sometimes it might be as fast as a month. I might send something overseas, have the artist work on it, and they get it back to me like within 4 weeks. That's amazing. But some artists are very, very popular, and they could hold on to your faceplate for 3 months, and that's not unusual. I mean, art takes time, and I appreciate that, but sometimes when you're not sure, or if you have the expectation set that you're supposed to get it within 8 weeks, well, you're going to be disappointed. So pay attention to that. If you're not sure, or if the artist isn't clear about it, don't be afraid to ask. And then last but not least, about custom dolls, getting on the wait list is important. So I am furiously stalking Instagram for new artists or popular artists. I am looking at their websites. If they have a Facebook page, I read their rules of engagement, how they get people on their waiting list. I pay attention, and it's almost like just being plugged into any kind of network of information. The more you know, the more I can help you. And there have been a few times where I've found out about a really exclusive doll auction, or limited edition dolls, or just getting on a wait list for very, very popular artists from their communications to me or from their social media accounts. So I always recommend seeking out the artists that you like, staying in touch with them, and seeing about getting on their waiting list. That's usually what I do. I know there's like a ton more stuff I can tell you, and maybe if you guys have questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them, but would love to hear your tips, and we can just share back and forth. So let me know what you got. Thanks.